I'm sure you can think of plenty of times where you go, today's the day I quit.
Oh yeah, there's many times. The first 25 years, there was those times you want to turn back, and the last 5 years especially. Oh my goodness, they've been so tough. With COVID that took place and losing $2 million of income just like that. Because of all the things that were shut down that would be revenue generators for us. And I actually did quit. Matter of fact, I literally told God after 30 years, I said, God, it's over. It's funny. Sometimes we talk to God and say, it's been a good run, right, God?
Yeah.
It's been 30. It's been a good run. And I actually, in my mind, quit. I was going to resign 3 weeks into COVID because I just couldn't do it anymore. And then I felt in my heart, I said, well, if I'm going to resign, I'm going to go out at least fighting and serving and helping people.
Sure.
It started with my desk on the sidewalk, and it's going to end with my desk on the sidewalk. And so I just sent out a little Twitter message. Hey, if anyone needs food, drive your car by during COVID, pop your trunk open and we'll put stuff in the back. And that was really done, not necessarily as a great outreach plan. It was just done as a kind of a farewell. I'm going to go out serving.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And then in that process, what happened was cars started to show up, and then they started to show up. And I basically prayed to God. I said, God, it's over, right? Remember I said it's over. And here, one thing
I should say, you operated what was essentially a drive-through with free food. And you would serve 8,000 meals to people who needed. Yeah, that's
and it started off with like a dozen, and then turned into 100. And in my mind, I already quit. I said it's over. But before it's over, I got to feed people the next day and the next day and the next day. So we went 380 days in a row in feeding people. 380 that I personally was there feeding people every single day for hours on the food line. And for 380 days, I already quit in my mind. Which the truth is
so
this:
wild.
It's amazing what you can do when you've already told yourself you've already given up. Because I'd given up, but here's what the great thing about faith is. I think sometimes we see faith as like, oh, I feel so confident, and everything's good, and many times faith is like having all the doubt in the world, but you still find yourself shuffling your feet forward towards something, which means that your faith is ultimately greater than your fears because you're still moving in the direction of what you need to do. And
you're the opposite of a quitter. I think one of your most impressive and exciting accomplishments is that to raise money, you ran 7 marathons on 7 different continents in only 7 days.
Yep.
And that's untouchable. Like in terms of, I haven't heard anything like that. So that's just to establish that you're not a quitter.
The insanity, yes. Establish the insanity.
But you got to a point, and then that, emotionally, maybe you kind of felt a bottom. I got to quit here. But then sticking around for a little longer was enough to boost you up.
A little bit longer. I felt like there's been so many times where all I had left was enough energy for 24 more hours.
Yeah.
But, when I got through that 24 hours, I found new mercy on the next day, and I found, a new strength on the next day. And then you get kind of the wind back. And I think many people quit right before the greatest breakthrough, right before the biggest thing has ever happened. And so everybody in California was in lockdown. They were at home and they were following us, feeding meals and, trying to be the best we could in the circumstance, but popping meals in the trunk as people are going by, and it captured the nation. And little did I realize that an idea that I had of quitting and just going out on principle by serving and giving out meals would stir the nation, and people were showing up, and it became an absolute chaos of a level I've never seen before in my entire life. And it kept me in, and I kept going and kept going. Then I got my second wind back, and I felt inspired again. And that's why you always can't trust your feelings. They're very deceptive at times, and go forward even when you don't feel something, because you can't always trust what you feel, because there's always that second and third wind around the corner.
And then you had 2 strokes.
Yeah, I had 2 strokes, and one time I was at a mall getting one of those chair massages.
Yeah.
And the guy was driving his elbow in my neck, and then all of a sudden I couldn't talk. Like, what's going on here? And found out I have a factor 5 blood clotting issue in my body, and so I clot more than others. And so I drove it right to my brain. Had 3 clots in my mind and up here, and then they took me to the hospital 2 years ago, and they gave me this shot, clot busting shot. And
wait, what was it? The shot? They said if you were 20 minutes later,
Yes, it was one of those you had to get in the first hour. Yep.
your face would fall down and
Yep,
everything?
I was already starting to get a little bit of paralyzation right here, but it all came back, and we were 8 days away from missing payroll, and so I'm calling the team and staff and telling them, "Hey, max out my credit card," and then the roof of our building had a collapse where we had the old 100-year dome pieces begin to fall. Thank God, not when service was going on.
Sure.
And so that was $1.2 million out of our building. Everything hit at once. And I just sat there and I said, God, if you love the people that are the most broken of humanity, if you love those that have been forgotten and forsaken, if you love them that much, you've got to show up and you've got to do something. And then people started rising up and one businessman said, I'll take over fundraising for 30 days. You just get better. But I got up and all my, work mindset of finding a solution. I tried to speak in New York City for an engagement I was already supposed to speak at.
Wow.
And flew out to New York and had equilibrium issues and it was the most terrifying. I had to kind of stop in the middle of my message and put it on autopilot message because I could barely even stand up in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And then I realized that, there does come a time of your life where you just have to sit back and just watch and let people love you, let people help you.
Sure.
And not be the solution to everything and just see what happens next.
How